Dinner is rarely just about what sits on your plate. Behind every tender bite of roast pheasant or every golden piece of free-range chicken lies a story of tradition, natural history, selective breeding, and careful human management. This is not just a tale of food. It's a chronicle of evolution, innovation, and respect for life. In this world, nature and industry meet, blending art and science in ways that have turned once wild creatures into icons of rural culture and high cuisine. What began as wilderness has transformed into a multi-billion-dollar agricultural network spanning continents, technologies, and centuries of knowledge. Subscribe now so you don't miss how our food choices are reshaping the land, the animals, and our connection to them. Imagine vast fields alive with movement, birds spreading their wings in morning sunlight as caretakers carefully monitor feed, airflow, and health data through digital dashboards. These aren't primitive farms. They're ecosystems designed with pharmaceutical-level precision. Each step, from hatching to harvest, is calculated to uphold an ideal balance between natural behavior and human guidance. Landscapes evolve into carefully managed meadows where flocks roam freely within protective fencing, while technical teams ensure that the air remains clean and that water, feed, and temperature serve the highest welfare standards. It's an environment that blurs the line between wilderness and stewardship. At the heart of this story stands the pheasant, a creature that carries both spectacle and symbolism. Its origins wind back to the shadowed forests and rice terraces of Asia, where for millennia these birds embodied abundance and beauty. They colored ancient folklore and banquet tales, their plumage woven into royalty, hunting traditions, and spiritual meaning. The common pheasant, or Pheasants colchicus, originally thrived from the foothills of China through Mongolia, Vietnam, and India, regions where its gold, red, and green feathers blended seamlessly with the dense canopy of subtropical wilderness. To the people who once observed them in these landscapes, they were more than wildlife. They were living emblems of balance between bounty and mystery. The encounter between East and West changed everything. In the late 18th and 19th centuries, European explorers and traders, enchanted by the bird's elegance, began transporting pheasants aboard ships as exotic gifts and symbols of status. The species took root across Great Britain and Central Europe, spreading eventually to the American Midwest through ambitious acclimatization programs. At first, these birds were released simply for sport, to enrich the experience of the hunt and add flair to game preserves. But fascination soon evolved into practice. Farmers and gamekeepers recognized that the pheasant could be more than fleeting game. It could be a cornerstone of agricultural economies, or connecting farmers, chefs, and communities. By the early 1900s, pheasant husbandry became a discipline of its own, merging rural intuition with scientific innovation. Game farms emerged across England, Scotland, and the US, each developing breeding programs fine-tuned for survival, coloration, and adaptability. Pheasants, once entirely wild, gradually entered the agricultural cycle, taking on a dual identity: wild enough to challenge hunters, yet managed enough to thrive under human supervision. Today, pheasant farming represents an enduring intersection of wildlife management, sport, and gastronomy. Raising pheasants, however, is far from straightforward. It's an intricate dance between the unpredictable rhythms of nature and the controlled variables of science. A female pheasant typically begins laying eggs between 28 and 30 weeks of age. Each hen produces 12 to 20 eggs per clutch, and the collection process is meticulous. Every morning, workers sweep through the rows of nesting boxes, gently gathering eggs by hand. They are washed using specialized solutions that remove bacteria without damaging the protective outer film, then sorted carefully under bright inspection lights. Cracked or miscolored eggs are set aside, while selected ones are moved into precision incubators, a system so closely monitored that even a 0.5-degree temperature shift could alter the outcome. The incubators maintain a steady 99.5 degrees Fahrenheit, ensuring the delicate embryos stay in perfect developmental conditions for 23 to 25 days. The humidity is adjusted precisely to replicate the natural nest microclimate the mother would maintain in the wild. The processors hum softly, an artificial heartbeat ensuring a life continues unseen. When the chicks finally break through their shells, they are transferred immediately to brooder units, sterile yet warm environments glowing softly beneath infrared lamps. Here begins the most fragile stage of their journey. For the first weeks, young pheasants live under constant supervision. The air must circulate gently but efficiently, since any buildup of moisture or dust could suffocate fragile lungs. Feed is ground fine and rich in protein, an engineered recipe packed with vitamins, fish meal, and calcium to support rapid bone and feather growth. Temperature adjustments happen every few hours to simulate natural day cycles. Any signs of weakness or stress are noted instantly, as a single outbreak of respiratory infection could spread through an entire flock in days. By their 8th or 10th week, the chicks have grown into bold, sleek juveniles. At this point, human care steps back and nature takes a cautious lead. The birds are introduced into semi-wild environments, enormous enclosures of open land ringed with high netting and protective barriers. These tracts, sometimes covering hundreds of acres, mimic wilderness safely contained. Inside, pheasants learn to forage, explore, and take to the air. They feel sunlight direct on their feathers, stretch their wings, and test the aerodynamics that evolution designed for escape and endurance. This developmental phase is critical. Birds that fly well are faster, tougher, and far more likely to survive once released. Yet, however carefully prepared they are, survival in the open remains uncertain. Disease and exposure add further challenges, thinning populations that seem robust in captivity. Farmers and wildlife managers are constantly refining their approach to offset these risks. Vaccinations guard against Newcastle disease, salmonellosis, and avian influenza. Lightweight beak guards prevent aggressive pecking, while automated feeders distribute natural grains and small seeds to supplement what the birds find on their own. In some farms, drone surveillance tracks movement, predator access points, and stress behavior patterns, offering early warnings invisible to the naked eye. Through this blend of traditional husbandry and modern field technology, farmers have learned to sustain massive populations with surprisingly small teams. The harmony between digital monitoring and everyday care doesn't just improve yield, it fosters resilience. After 14 to 16 weeks, these birds are fully grown, their muscles conditioned, and instincts sharpened. Many will take part in hunting seasons that, in places like England, draw millions of enthusiasts each year. In the United States, especially across states like South Dakota, Minnesota, and Kansas, 10 to 12 million pheasants form the centerpiece of an enduring fall tradition. But the pheasant's impact isn't confined to the field or the feast. Economically, this bird is an engine of community and culture. In Britain, the hunting industry centered around pheasants generates billions of pounds annually, fueling rural employment and tourism. In America's Midwest, the numbers are equally striking. South Dakota alone welcomes more than 120,000 visiting hunters every season, who collectively spend millions of dollars on lodging, dining, equipment, guiding, and travel. Entire local economies pulse with life during these weeks as lodges, outfitters, and small-town diners bustle with early morning chatter and muddy boots. At the heart of it all, pheasant remains the connecting thread, a single bird bridging economic vitality, heritage, and the primal satisfaction of the hunt. Hunting dogs splash through marshes while guides scan the horizon under skies the color of dawn. Back at the lodge, chefs prepare the day's harvest, pheasant roasted with rosemary and juniper, or braised slowly in red wine and autumn vegetables. These aren't just meals, they are rituals, carrying generations of flavor, landscape, and respect. The story of the pheasant, from ancient Asian forests to modern dining tables, represents more than the evolution of a species. It's the story of humanity's enduring quest to live alongside nature, to cultivate it, and yet preserve its wildness within reach. Among all game birds, pheasant holds a special status, an enduring emblem of elegance and tradition on both sides of the Atlantic. In European kitchens, it's a mark of luxury and refinement, savored not just for its flavor, but for the heritage it represents. Pheasant is slow cuisine at its best, lovingly prepared in the warmth of rustic farmhouses and grand restaurant kitchens alike. There, chefs braise it in rich red wine stews, roast it whole with herbs and shallots, or grind it into delicate pâtés that pair perfectly with autumn truffles and dark berry sauces. Each preparation highlights the bird's lean yet flavorful character, something that mass-bred poultry rarely achieves. Across the ocean, pheasant enjoys a parallel story of prestige. In America's fine dining scene, it stands as a statement, served on white porcelain plates in dimly lit dining rooms where chefs celebrate its natural sweetness and gamey complexity. The taste is richer and deeper than chicken, its meat imbued with earth, air, and wild grass. It's no surprise that on the menu, a dish made from pheasant can cost up to 3 times more than one made with conventional poultry. Even the eggs carry an air of rarity. Their smooth shells, pale blue, soft gray, or deep brown, catch the eye at specialty markets where they're prized for their scarcity and artisanal appeal. For gourmets and farmers alike, pheasant represents the living connection between heritage and modern gastronomy. But behind the glimmering image lies a series of difficult questions. As the pheasant industry grew, so did scrutiny over how it operates. Animal welfare advocates began to voice concern about what happens before the roast reaches the table. The ethics of raising and releasing millions of birds, primarily for the purpose of hunting, have drawn sharp debate. Many argue that the high mortality rates and the stress endured by birds during captivity and release run counter to the idea of responsible stewardship. Ecologists add another layer to this discussion, warning that large-scale releases could interfere with native ecosystems. When millions of farm-raised pheasants enter the landscape, they compete with wild birds for food, space, and nesting areas. In some regions, there's also the risk of disease transmission to native species. Such concerns have not gone unnoticed. In recent years, a quiet revolution has begun within the world of game bird production. Many breeders are experimenting with new models of ethical management, allowing birds greater freedom before release, reducing population densities, and improving transport and handling conditions. Some farms have joined conservation partnerships, helping restore native habitats as an offset to their stock releases. Others are investing in genetic diversity programs to ensure stronger, healthier populations bred closer to their wild ancestors. The industry, once criticized for its traditionalism, is cautiously embracing innovation not only to preserve profits, but to protect the legacy of the bird itself. As we step from game lands into the broader world of poultry, another evolution becomes clear: the rise of free-range chicken farming. This shift represents not only a change in agricultural method, but a cultural transformation in how humans view their food. For decades, the global poultry industry was defined by scale. Billions of chickens bred in confined spaces, fattened quickly, and processed at high speed to meet the demands of a growing population. But as awareness of animal welfare and sustainability spread, a countercurrent emerged. More farmers began to turn away from high-density facilities and toward open fields and sunlight. In the United States, this transformation took shape over the past 3 decades. The number of farms dedicated to free-range chicken production has risen by more than 60%, reaching over 750 operations nationwide. Worldwide, roughly 15,000 farms now commit to this model. While cattle, sheep, and pigs have been raised under extensive systems for centuries, the idea of chickens foraging freely across pastures remains relatively new. And yet, the results are transforming both the method and the market. The core philosophy is simplicity itself. Let chickens live like chickens. Instead of confinement, they are granted space to move, scratch, and forage naturally for insects, worms, and wild greens. Farmers supplement these natural diets with balanced feed rich in grains, proteins, and vital nutrients. The reward is tangible. The meat grows slower, firmer, and develops a depth of flavor that can't be replicated in industrial settings. Nutritional studies confirm higher levels of omega-3 fatty acids and vitamins, as well as lower overall fat. Consumers, in turn, respond to what feels more authentic: food that carries the taste of open air and natural life. Yet every free-range system begins long before a bird ever touches grass. It starts with careful breeding. Farmers select hardy strains that can thrive outdoors and resist disease. Their eggs are incubated with precision, maintaining optimal temperature and humidity until the chicks emerge. For the first 6 weeks, these chicks remain in gently heated brooders, where temperature, airflow, and feed are tightly controlled. This early stage builds resilience and prepares them for the outdoors. Once ready, the birds graduate to open pastures, a moment many farmers describe as the true beginning of a free-range life. In the fields, mobility is everything. Farmers rely on portable chicken coops, small, wheeled shelters that can be moved daily to fresh ground. This rotation ensures that no patch of land becomes overused, while also spreading the manure evenly as natural fertilizer. It's a sustainable cycle where poultry and pasture benefit each other, allowing the land to breathe and regenerate. Over time, this interplay creates healthier soil, richer plant growth, and a self-sustaining balance between livestock and environment. Daily care in such farms requires patience and precision. At dawn, farmers open the coops and watch as flocks spill out into the grass, pecking rhythmically at dew-covered earth. Feeders are refilled, water troughs cleaned, and fences checked for breaches. As the evening falls, the birds are called back, guided by routine rather than force, to roost safely inside. The nights can bring danger. Foxes, coyotes, and hawks forever test the perimeter. Electric fencing and vigilant observation are essential safeguards. Beyond basic security, biological health remains a farmer's constant preoccupation. Each batch of chickens is observed for behavioral changes, while water and feed systems undergo regular sanitation. Antibiotics are reserved strictly for medical necessity, a sharp contrast to industrial methods that rely heavily on prophylactic use. The goal is prevention through environment and nutrition, not reaction through chemicals. By reducing stress and maintaining cleanliness, disease outbreaks become rare rather than expected. When the hens mature, typically around 5 to 6 months, they begin their productive cycle of laying. Each can produce between 250 and 300 eggs per year. These eggs are marked not just by quality, but by character. Darker yolks, denser whites, and shells streaked with natural pigment depending on the breed. Collection is organized several times a day. Workers carefully gather the eggs by hand, inspecting them for cracks before storing them in cooling rooms held between 45 and 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Many free-range farms meet the requirement for USDA organic certification, a mark that commands trust and higher value among consumers concerned about both health and ethics. For meat production, the process follows a similar rhythm rooted in welfare. Free-range chickens take 8 to 12 weeks to reach their ideal weight of roughly 4 to 5.5 pounds. Unlike battery-raised birds, they're never rushed to maturity. Slaughter typically occurs at night to minimize stress and avoid panic. Each bird is carefully gathered and placed in ventilated crates, then transported swiftly to local processing facilities. There, the procedures are designed for speed, hygiene, and dignity, ensuring the animal's end is as calm as possible. Usually within 2 hours of leaving the farm, there's no denying this model demands effort, investment, and discipline. Managing open-air systems takes more time and space than industrial farms ever could, but the payoff is clear: quality, integrity, and growing consumer loyalty. In a world where people increasingly want to know the story behind their food, free-range poultry farming stands as both an economic opportunity and an ethical statement, a reminder that even in an age of mass production, there is still room for respect, patience, and the slow art of doing things right. The intertwined tales of pheasants and chickens reveal a larger story, one where tradition merges with modern science and sustainable agricultural practice. From Asian forests to open American fields, these birds illustrate how our food systems can evolve while balancing economic success and ethical responsibility. The journey of food from field to plate is complex and sometimes fraught, a process shaped by dedicated farmers and hunters striving daily to realize standards of quality, sustainability, and animal welfare. When you next savor a dish of chicken or pheasant, consider the long road that led it there. The untold stories of those who work tirelessly, respecting life, and pursuing progress at the intersection of agriculture and wild nature. As free-range and game bird farming continue to expand, challenges remain. Producers must navigate pressures from consumer demand, regulatory requirements, changing climates, and ongoing debates about animal rights. Many farms now blend ancient methods like rotational grazing and natural foraging with technological advances such as GPS monitoring, solar-powered operations, and precision breeding. These hybrids aim to reduce environmental impacts, improve animal health, and foster genetic diversity. Regenerative agriculture, for example, is gaining ground. Farming methods that restore soil health and biodiversity while maintaining productivity. Integrated pest management, cover cropping, and rotational field access support robust ecosystems and minimize dependence on chemicals. At the same time, industry education and transparency initiatives help consumers understand the realities of food production and the true costs of ethical choices. Public discussion around pheasant and poultry industries is ever evolving. Advocacy groups and researchers continue to push for humane treatment, equitable resource use, and conservation of wild populations. As technologies and practices advance, so too does the potential for balance, using data and collaboration to maintain traditions and livelihoods without losing sight of ecological limits. Ultimately, the symbiosis of agriculture and wild nature is at the heart of every meal. Whether enjoyed at a rustic hunter's lodge or a bustling city restaurant, each serving carries with it a legacy of knowledge, care, and continual adaptation. If this documentary has offered you deeper insight into the incredible journeys of game and free-range poultry, consider subscribing to follow more stories at the crossroads of farming and wildlife. And now, join the conversation below. Do you believe these traditions are worth preserving, and how can we further enhance the care and stewardship of our birds and the environments they inhabit?